I call this meeting of the special meeting of the Williamsburg-James City County Public School Board to order. If I can have a motion to certify closed session, please.
Mr. Chair, I certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, the Williamsburg-James City County School Board, while in closed session, discussed only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements as stated in Virginia law, and that only such public matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ortego. Ms. Aller?
Ms. Cook.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. Ms. Aller, will you call the roll?
Dr. Beers. Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Ms. Cook.
Here.
Ms. Hummel.
Here.
Mrs. Hunley.
Here.
Mrs. Ortego.
Here.
Mr. Dowell.
Here. I have a motion to allow Dr. Beers to attend this meeting via electronic communication.
Mr. Chair, I move to allow Dr. Beers to attend the meeting via electronic communication.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hundley. And Ms. Aller?
Ms. Cook.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. We do not have Miss Young this afternoon now. She's on a plane and tried her best. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hummel. And Ms. Aller?
Ms. Cook.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. Okay. Give me one moment. Let me just check my email. Nothing yet. We're going to move on to item 3.01, which is discussion of Executive Order 2, 2022, and SB 1303 as of 2021. And if you all would permit me, I'd like to begin with some remarks, and then we'll go around the horn and ask each of our board members to weigh in on the discussion. Board colleagues and Dr. Herron, I do want to acknowledge that I fully grasp the weight of the matter before us. I do recognize the immense work and efforts of the school division, staff, and faculty to serve children and families since the beginning of the pandemic. Our WJCC professionals have risen against every obstacle that has presented itself, from division-wide school closures, full and hybrid remote learning, budget cutbacks, illnesses, rapidly changing COVID mitigation protocols from CDC and VDH, and a whole host of other challenges that few outside of the school division would be aware of. All of those things and more are true. Before us now is a question of how this division is to proceed on January 24th. We know that last year, in a special session of the General Assembly, the State Senate introduced SB 1303, which required local school boards to offer in-person instruction and, quote, provide such in-person instruction in a manner in which it adheres to the maximum extent practicable to any currently applicable mitigation strategies for early childhood care and education programs in elementary and secondary schools to reduce the transmission of COVID-19 that have been provided by the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, end quote. That bill was signed by then Governor Northam, yet not codified. Furthermore, we recognize that our newly inaugurated Governor Youngkin issued Executive Order 2 on January 15th. That order directed the Executive Order 79 be rescinded, that the State Health Commissioner terminate Public Health Emergency Order 10, and that no teacher, school, or school district mandate the wearing of masks for any student whose parents does not elect for it for their own child. As I'm aware, these are the issues Virginians now wrestle with. Since the 15th, I've been engaged in countless discussions with parents, teachers, students, trusted advisors, board colleagues, and friends. In the short period of time that we've all had to digest the relationship between Governor Youngkin's order and SB 1303, I have come to this conclusion. We can choose to make this about personal preference. Yes, my wife and I have 3 children being served by our wonderful WJCC professionals. The governor's decision, of course, have an impact on my own. Of course, I have a personal preference in this question. We can choose to make this a matter of politics and political ideology. For me, and I know my board colleagues believe this about me, I know they do, it is about remaining faithful to the oath that I swore to protect the Constitution and adhere to the rule of law. That sentiment is what I let guide me all last year when I personally disagreed with the mask mandate for all. While we know that it has never been codified, it has been defended by executive order, and as such, I was required to adhere to the rule of law. So I did without evasion or open disagreement. We all did. I view Executive Order 2 in the same light and respectfully ask my colleagues to join me in giving it the validation it's due at this time. I hear the concerns from all those I've engaged with. The concern is that Executive Order 2 flies in the face of a law issued by General Assembly and signed by a governor. Again, SB 1303 provides, among other things, that each school board shall provide such in-person instruction in a manner in which it adheres to the maximum extent practicable to any currently applicable mitigation strategies for elementary and secondary schools to reduce the transmission of COVID-19 that have been provided by the CDC. I ask the board to recognize that yes, the CDC guidelines do contain requirements and recommendations. However, it is only a recommendation that all students ages 2 and older comply with universal indoor masking. Per the CDC's guidelines, universal indoor masking is a recommendation, not a requirement. While this is true, it also supports my contention that Executive Order 2 is not in contradiction with SB 1303, as it directs the use of mitigation strategies for the maximum extent practicable. Furthermore, it's been suggested that Governor Northam's executive orders were never challenged in court because they were not in violation of law. Respectfully, I would like to point to Virginia Code Section 1-240.1. We all know this one well, rights of parents. Rights of parents. Signed into law in 2013, it reads, "A parent has a fundamental right to make decisions concerning the upbringing, education, and care of the parent's child." It's been suggested to me a number of times that Governor Northam's executive orders never contradicted state code, but that cannot be the case while rights of parents has been the law in Virginia since 2013. Governor Northam's orders were in violation of this statute because they mandated a course of behavior upon students that was disagreeable at the time by many students' parents. While that is true, we as a division abided by the orders because they were not challenged, nor stalled by an injunction or forced repeal by a court. Absent any of those outcomes, it was our responsibility to uphold the expectations of his order, and we did. I believe we should be responding in like fashion and setting aside our personal misgivings of the decision or its timing. The greatest influence to staying the course, essentially disregarding EO2, is the presumed impact that it will have on an already grievously challenged school division. I recognize it. I do hear it. I do hear it. Sincerely, I do. We as a board have been called to make unpopular decisions when necessary. In light of everything we are dealing with as a division, the hard call we must make is to recognize the authority of the governor and the executive order he has issued. Thank you for giving me that opportunity to speak my perspective. Ms. Cook, can I begin with you?
I have something I would like.
Ms. Hummel?
Yeah,
Sure.
thank you. I would like to, this is point of kind of as parliamentarian and point of process. Typically, what would happen is that the chair would give an overarching, this is the situation that we're dealing with before discussion. And what I have just witnessed right here is the chair giving a school board opinion rather than giving the chairs. So what I would like to say is that I disagree with the process that you have chosen to start this discussion as a chair and going immediately into your opinion as a school board member. So I just want to put that on record, and then I'll let everyone else say their thoughts. But that, to me, in my experience with past chairs, is that the chair allows the discussion to occur, then goes through and lets everyone speak, and then states their opinion.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Do you want to continue and take the moment?
To let everyone else go around.
Okay. Ms. Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I begin, I just want to take a few seconds to thank you for your hard work in arranging this meeting and arranging. And we really struggled with scheduling this because of the weather that we're experiencing. And Dr. Heron, to you and your team for making this all happen. It was a lot of work. Ms. Aller, thank you. I just want to acknowledge how hard you all worked to just get us here today. And even with that hard work, we are missing a very valuable voice at the table, and I regret that we are not able to have Miss Young, because I would love to hear what she has to say, and I value that. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. I also want to assure everybody that I am speaking today not from my personal perspective, but as a member of the school board in my entering or at the beginning of my 8th year. So I've had a good deal of experience and have been through some really tough challenges on this board, and so I just want to make sure that everybody knows that my lens is as a school board member, not as Kira Cook, private citizen. And so with that, I'd just like to share that with regard to today's decision that we're going to make, I'm inclined to take the counsel of the Health Advisory Committee, although recognizing their presentations have not changed minds on this issue regarding masking or vaccines, which I frankly find unfortunate. They nonetheless advise staying the course for now, and I'm inclined to take their counsel. I'm also inclined to take the counsel of the educational professionals who are living the pandemic every day in the classroom and who have decades of instructional experience. The overwhelming majority of administrators, staff members, and teachers favor staying the course for now, and I take their counsel. I'm inclined to take into consideration input from our legal counsel, who advises that the Governor's Executive Order 2 has created a legal quandary that will eventually be settled, hopefully quickly, but nonetheless our legal counsel does advise us to stay the course for now until that is settled. She advises us that CDC guidelines are actually mandatory in Virginia, which is something that I think we should all be aware of, and that we are obligated under the law to follow the code, which was created by Senate Bill 1303. And I'd just like to note that our attorney, has been giving the board counsel for 7 years. While I've been on the, better part of the decade, she also counsels the School Board Association of Virginia and is incredibly highly regarded and is considered probably the foremost expert in the state at this time. I also am inclined to be concerned about the health and safety of our most vulnerable students and staff, for whom current mitigation strategies are the single reason they can be in our buildings. For them, I believe we should stay the course for now until we're able to operationalize another way forward. I'm inclined to worry about allowing time for staff to operationalize a sudden shift in mitigation efforts in a passionately divided community. There are few WJCC staff, parents, or students who are neutral on the topic of masking. How that plays out in our schools needs to be well considered, and that will not happen by Monday. I'd also like to point out that large institutions typically do not move fast. That's just the way of the world. So I think it is appropriate and normal for an institution of the size of WJCC to need time to execute yet another change well. In my mind as a school board member, I need to focus on keeping children in school so that they can take part in in-person learning. The way to do that is to focus on the institution itself. So to keep it working, such as it is at the moment, it's not ideal, but we'll get there together, and I just think we need to stay the course for a little bit longer. I'd also like to comment that in our country there is a constant tension between individual rights and the public welfare. In this instance, at this time, in this moment, I land on the side of public welfare, and I support the mitigation efforts in their totality, unless and until the issue is made legally clear, which it is not currently. I recognize that this is a conservative approach, but it's a prudent thing to do for us currently. I appreciate those who want parent choice on the issue of masking, and I ask for your patience and support as we work through the legal and logistical challenges to make that a reality. But the bottom line for me is unless and until I'm told otherwise by clear Virginia law, I want to protect the teachers who educate our children by maintaining CDC mitigation standards. Mr. Chair, that's where I stand on the issue today, and that's how I intend to vote.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Cook. Ms. Hundley?
Thank you. Also, Greg, thanks so much for handling the emails from parents and citizens. Definitely, I just wanted people to know that I have read them all. I have responded to the ones that did come personally to me and had the chair respond to the ones that came to the full board. When it comes to EO2, I think the thing that, in my mind, we all knew that it was coming. The problem I had was with leadership in the way it came. I think of a good leader as someone who would have at least consulted and said, this is, my intentions, and talk to the schools about how we would transition through this. Not come Monday. Can you survey your teachers and see with this law that's going to be put in place, how many are going to stay and how many are going to go, so that your human resource personnel know what to do with vacancies? Can you survey the parents that want that are going to have their children unmasked, but don't want them not to sit with children that are masked? Have you talked to the counselors or how the teachers are going to help handle that in the classroom? I've heard things like, I don't want my child bullied for having a mask. I don't want my child not bullied for having a mask. No one got a chance to talk about how that was going to go. Are we going to let the people that are already, the parents that may say, okay, I would like to pull my children out now, and can they have an option to go into virtual? Will there be an option for them? There was no discussion for that, to be able to talk about that. Our teachers, 88% of the Education Association, favor masks. So we didn't have the conversations to help transition this, to even say, hey, can we unmask this part, see how this goes, check numbers? Then there was no transition. It was just, this is what's going to happen on Monday. And that is not good leadership. That is not the way we should roll out things that are this serious when we are talking about the health and safety of thousands of people. So that's my thing on that. I would have liked some working together, not. I am a woman of faith. I asked for 3 signs. 3 things have come. These are the 3 things that I believe. Definitely, I believe in the health and the safety reports that have come. I believe in what our staff and teachers and lots of emails. I would say I've done the math in my head. It's about 80-20, 80 for sticking with the plan and 20 not. And definitely, the attorney said 1303 is the law at this time to follow, and there's not clarity that CO2 is actually law. So that's my feeling and opinion, and I am sticking with that we are going to start having discussions, because as of August 1st, we need to start having discussions now. The school division needs to have discussions now in case something changes in July. But definitely by August, we should have a nice and a better plan.
Thank you, Ms. Hundley. Dr. Beers, are you with us? Would you like to offer comment?
Yes. After hearing the opinion of our school board council, I believe that Governor Youngkin's executive order violates the law passed by the General Assembly 1303 and ignores the constitutional responsibility of our school boards to provide the education for our students here in Williamsburg. And really, the only other thing I would say to those who don't support this is that if you don't like the law, change it. You have representatives, you can change the law. But right now, the law is 1303. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Beers. Ms. Ortega?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to everyone for being here. I know this is taking time out of everyone's day, and was a lot of work, and I am glad that we have the opportunity to have this conversation. I know it's not typically done, but I think this is important, and I'm glad we're doing it. I want to say there are people that I know, respect, and genuinely care about on both sides of this issue. I have friends with special needs children who are legitimately on opposite sides of this issue. I know people who have a child who's immune compromised, who really can't get COVID. I have a friend whose son was born deaf, and he relies heavily on facial expressions and lip reading in order to communicate, learn, and participate in the world. That's a special need too. So these are all special and important needs. I care about teachers. I care about administrators. I acknowledge the incredible hard work that all have done. I care about parents, and I care about children. I care about this community, and I'm deeply saddened that deep division that leads to hatred is now part of our everyday interactions, and it's part of interactions in schools, and I think that's awful. But our role as school board members is not to choose which group we care about most, or whose special needs are most special, or whose fears are most valid. And that's not how I see my role. That's not what I see myself doing today. I'm not choosing between sides. And while this has taken an emotional toll on me, my decision is not an emotional decision. We're here because we disagree about what the most lawful way is to proceed. I do not believe that Executive Order 2 and SB 1303 are in conflict with each other. I believe that the Executive Order simply informs what the, quote, maximum extent practicable is under SB 1303. So for me, I'm not choosing between laws or choosing which law is more lawful. I think they work together. I want to say that I do not assign any malintent to Dr. Herron or any of her staff or any of my fellow board colleagues. I believe everyone is doing what they think is the right thing, but we have very different ideas of what that right thing is in this moment. I think there are other options. The school board could file an injunction in the Circuit Court of James City County and thus be granted permission to stay the course until a legal decision is rendered. That's not what we're doing. The school board can issue a policy stating that masks are still required while granting individual parents the ability to opt out in accordance with EO2. That's not what we're doing. But I would like to say that despite how I think this vote is going to go today, I am very happy that we are taking action in the form of a vote. As a form of local representative government, it is important that that each of us are willing to state our opinion, to explain our opinion, and be willing to take a vote and explain it. So I do appreciate the fact that we're doing this, and I appreciate all of the many conversations and input and opinions of all of my colleagues here. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. Ms. Hummel?
Hi, thank you. And I do want to express my appreciation to you, Mr. Dow, for all of the work that you've done in answering citizens, et cetera. So I didn't want my procedural comment to offset my respect for you and all the other things that you've been doing. With regard to the issue at hand, I agree, with so many of my colleagues with everything they're saying. I have been on the board for 6 years now, and when there are issues that there are really good points to both sides, I do defer to our legal counsel because in the big scheme of things, I want to know what is the safest legal issue if we've got really good points on both sides. Personally, I also, from a personal standpoint, I have to say, if I'm going to lean one way or the other, I've got to lean on behalf of the faculty and the teachers and the administration that have been struggling for since March of 2020 to deliver education to our children in the safest way possible. Back in March of 2020, what the school system had to do to shore up these virtual academies and move overnight to an online virtual learning was unbelievably difficult. What our faculty, what our staff and our teachers have had to do since that point is just, I listen to the stress they're under and the day-to-day miracles that they achieve in midst of angry parents and legitimately differing opinions about things, and my heart goes out to them. But at the end of the day, they are tasked with educating our kids, and so then I look at the person that we pay. Our chief academic officer, Dr. Heron, as our superintendent, and then I look for her guidance and what she thinks would be the best scenario for us to follow. So I look at legal advice, and I look at our the superintendent who we hired to make a lot of these hard decisions. So I am in favor of continuing with our mask mandate, but I do think that there should be an exit ramp. I do think that the timing of this is so rotten, honestly, because I think if the governor had even put this executive order to take effect in late February to give everyone the opportunity to clear the legal air about what is involved, and then see hopefully our Omicron cases come crashing down, which is what I'm hoping, then you're looking at an executive order that isn't even necessary, because the school systems themselves would have the exit ramp to figure out what is the safest and the best way to move forward. So that's my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you for it, Ms. Hummel. And thank you for it, Ms. Hummel. I'm going to stop muting myself. I don't know how to unmute it. Dr. Heron, do you have remarks?
Certainly. Thank you, sir, for the opportunity. And I do have the greatest of respect for every board member in the room. We've had an incredible working relationship, and I don't think this will change that. We just are in very different perspectives today. But throughout the pandemic, we've made decisions to protect the health and safety of our students, staff, and families. The layers of mitigation implemented have helped prevent in-school transmission of COVID-19 and enabled us to keep our doors open for in-person instruction. From my perspective as superintendent, per our attorney's guidance, Senate Bill 1303 is the law either until it expires on August 1st, 2022, or the General Assembly adopts a bill amending it and the new governor signs it into law. To act counter to the guidance by our attorney leaves us legally vulnerable as a school division. Senate Bill 1303 requires school divisions to provide in-person instruction and adhere to currently applicable mitigation strategies provided by CDC to reduce the transmission of COVID-19. CDC recommends masks in school, and that has been our practice. And federal law requires the use of masks in school buses. Therefore, our current practices are in compliance with both state and federal law. The Virginia PTA and the American Academy of Pediatrics have both released statements recommending schools continue following CDC guidelines and masks at this time of high transmission. Our own health advisory team have advised that now is not the time to remove the mask mandate due to high transmission levels in our community. I assure you we will step down mitigation strategies with our health advisory team guidance, including masks, when it is operationally safe to do so. This is not the right time while COVID-19 transmission is at its highest level ever in our community. From an operational perspective, you heard on Tuesday night, we are at a tipping point, and every staff member in schools and central office has been working as a dedicated team to keep students learning in person. If masks are not required, we will not have the staff or substitutes to sustain in-person learning and will most likely, out of sheer necessity, have to shift to virtual learning. I know some of our staff that are medically fragile or who have family who are medically fragile and will not be able to continue to teach in person when masks are not required. As a school division, our first priority is sustaining in-person learning and ensuring that we provide a safe learning environment for all. Per our attorney, current law provides us the opportunity to do just that, and that certainly would be my recommendation this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Herron. I want to ask, before we move on to item 4.01, are there any members that wish to offer further comment or questions to Dr. Herron? Yes, Ms. Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Dow. I just wanted to follow up on a couple of things that Ms. Ortego said. Yes, today we're taking action, presumably on this legal quandary, but it doesn't preclude us, I don't think, from following up on some of the suggestions that you made. So I think it would be perfectly within order to ask the chair if he desires to talk to our attorney about perhaps an injunction, if that is legally advisable. Additionally, Ms. Hummel, if you could work with Ms. Young and Mr. Dow to see if a policy is appropriate moving forward in response to this issue. It may or may not be, but at least have it go through the pipeline and the process to at least think about it from a policy perspective from the policy committee. So I don't, because we're not doing that today doesn't mean that we can't do it at all. And so I think I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Anyone else? Okay. Let us move on to item 4.01, action in response to Executive Order 2, 2022. We have under executive content 2 motions provided to us by the division attorney, and I would ask for a motion on paragraph 2.
Okay. Mr. Chair. Hold on. Okay. Mr. Chair, in recognition of Governor Youngkin's Executive Order 2, which provides parents of school children the option to elect for their children not to be subject to any mask mandate in effect at the school's child's school, I move that parents be permitted to choose whether their children will comply with mask wearing while in school buildings without being required to provide a reason or make a certification concerning their child's health or education.
Thank you, and I'll ask for a second on that motion. I will provide that second. And is there any discussion? Yes, Ms. Ortego.
I would just like to reiterate briefly, because we don't need to rehash Tuesday's meeting, and I think the purpose of this meeting is different from the purpose of Tuesday's meeting, which was to discuss the, I saw Tuesday as discussing opinions, and especially opinions on efficacy of masks. That's not what I want to get into. I just want to point out that no one is suggesting banning masks. If anyone did suggest that, if the governor had issued an executive order banning masks, I would fight that, because I think that would also go against a parent's right to choose what is best for his or her child. So we are not taking masks away from anyone who needs and wants them. We are simply providing an option.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Ortego. Any other comments? I've read a lot of emails, and you know, if it were, it's a razor line between the community as they've provided responses, their perspectives on this issue, whether to abide by EO2 or continue the current path. And I think that I'm comfortable. Let me just say I'm comfortable with this entire process. I've been encouraged by us being able to meet in this way, in this fashion, and deliberate and have meaningful discussion. And our community, as they've been communicating with me, have been right on par with that. It's been congenial. It's been widely respectful. Excuse me, and I get the sense that as parents are permitted to choose, a great number of them will choose that their students should continue to wear masks as they see the high transmission rate. They see what we're discussing and what we see and what our division posts on the website. Yes, there will be some who have just been waiting for this opportunity to exercise that right and that parental authority. I also know second and third hand that there are some students that, they just carry around their mask in their pocket in the classrooms. They know what corridors they can get away with it. And so it's happening already. And so, but those are the small subsects of that group of this is our choice. I think that come Monday, I often have moments of great naivete, but I think come Monday we're going to see students continuing to wear masks because they believe it's right. They've been living this for 2 years and they know their own personal responsibility. So as we look at this motion and prepare to take action against this motion, I want that to be understood from my perspective as we've read our community members, and they are responsible individuals, and I think that's what this executive order outlines, that we can make good judgment for ourselves, and we can respect the good judgment of our parents and our communities.
I just want to reiterate
Yes, Ms. Hunley.
again, I agree, but we still need time to plan for all the different scenarios that can happen. Because a lot of times we go in and make a decision and we don't look at the ramifications or even think about what's going to happen. And that's my main point. We have to be planned out for every different thing that might happen, it's going to be a ripple effect, and then we'll be blamed for all of that. So definitely need to give people time to talk and plan and get a plan in.
I agree with you, Ms. Hunley.
Okay.
Ms. Ortega?
I just want to say I agree with Mrs. Henley. A better time frame would have been much better for all of us. There will, however, be a ripple effect both ways. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, I'm not seeing or sensing any further discussion. Ms. Aller, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Ortega,
Aye.
Dr. Beers,
No.
Ms. Cook,
No.
Ms. Hummel,
No.
Mrs. Hunley,
No.
Mr. Dowell.
Yes. Would you mind counting the votes, Ms. Aller?
Yes, sir. That is 2 ayes and 4 nays.
And the nays were, thank you. Let me ask, do we need, Ms. Parliamentarian, to take up the first motion?
Yes.
Would you?
Sure.
May I have a motion on paragraph 1?
Mr. Chair, I move that the school board continue to comply with SB 1303, which requires that each school board offer in-person instruction that adheres to the maximum extent practicable to the current applicable mitigation strategies for elementary and secondary schools to reduce the transmission of COVID-19 that have been provided by the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which currently includes universal indoor masking in K-12 schools.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hummel. Any further discussion? All right. Yes, you did. Okay.
Go ahead.
I would just like to reiterate that this motion is in direct compliance with recommendation from our legal counsel. Just want to reiterate that that is, just so the public is aware.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Ms. Ortega.
Yeah, I would just like to say that for me personally, I intend to vote against this motion, but I do not see this in conflict. What I'm suggesting, I do not see as not complying with Senate Bill 1303. So I just want to state for the record that while I'm voting against this, I intend to vote against this motion. I think that doing so would still comply with Senate Bill 1303.
Ms. Hummel.
Just would say that also taking, in addition to our legal counsel, I'm also taking into consideration the recommendation from our superintendent.
Second that.
Okay. If there is no other discussion, Ms. Aller?
Ms. Cook,
Aye.
Ms. Hummel,
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego,
No.
Dr. Beers,
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
No. And if you wouldn't mind, thank you.
Certainly, sir. That motion carries with 4 ayes and 2 nays.
Thank you, Ms. Aller. Dr. Herron, I believe we've seen the will of the board on this matter, and I thank you for taking it up.
Thank you, sir.
Let's move on to, well, we're going to stay here for a second before I join the meeting. I do want to just say thank you to each one of you for enduring a crazy day yesterday and trying to get this scheduled, working around weather, working around our personal lives and work schedules. I know Ms. Cook is probably wanted to shoot out of here for her own engagements, but I thank you, Ms. Cook. I don't want to leave this space right now as our community is watching. They've weighed in on Tuesday. They've sent emails. We know it's a razor thin line between how folks feel on this matter. But I'm really pleased. I really am pleased with being honored to be a part of this deliberative body as we could take up the question and provide discourse and conversation and action to this question. It is the will of the board now, and I believe each one of us understands our responsibilities to support our superintendent as we continue forward as a division. And so I thank you all for your time. I thank you for your commitment to your constituencies, your areas of Williamsburg and James City County. I thank our community for your patience as we try to bring some understanding to this and how it affects us as a community. Thank you, Dr. Herron. Dr. Herron, do you have any comments?
No, sir.
Okay. Anyone else before we adjourn? Seeing none. Thank you all.